Return of the Jedi came out in May 25th, 1983. And I remember my mom bringing this book home from the store. I was a big reader at that time, even though I was only 9, going on 10 years old. And I did read the first spoilers ever, and I accidentally, or maybe not accidentally, told her that Vader had not survived the film, and she was actually a little upset with me over that. Uh, so this was it's a big film for me, one of my favorites, and so the toys that came with it are also some of my favorites from the vintage original Star Wars line. So today we're going to take a quick look at one of the coolest scenes in the movie, especially as a kid, which was Jabba the Hutt's palace and his entourage. So right here we have the main guy himself, Jabba the Hutt. I've got the packaging for him, and displays pretty well from this angle. The box itself is a little rough in other areas. The playset came with Jabba himself. You can see with his hookah. I don't know if this would ever get released today, but he had a hookah back then. His little friend Salacious Crumb, the court jester, a little bit out of scale. He's very large, which I always thought was odd. And of course, the doors in this playset swing upwards, and you can pretend you've dropped someone in the Rancor pits, even though it's pretty far off scale. It's got a couple of Gamorrean guards with him, who are a little more portly than what we see in the Disney era. I've put C-3PO here as his interpreter, prisoner, and then his major domo, Bib Fortuna. And what's really cool is that Kenner originally gave Bib Fortuna this particular staff back in '83. He never used it in the film. They just designed it, gave it to him. We actually see him with this staff in the Book of Boba Fett, and that's one of the cool. I was not absolutely thrilled with that show, but that is one of the cool touches that some of the people working on that show include. And so as old school Kenner kids who are middle-aged now, we appreciate and identify with that. Got some of the rebel characters in various disguises, Luke in his Jedi gear, but we're not here to talk about them. We're here to talk about the Jabba entourage of weird creatures. Now, as a big creature fan, I was very thrilled with that scene, and that's probably wise, because I was always drawn to horror films and the weird part of sci-fi. So if we look at some of these guys here, one of my favorites was Tessic, or Squidhead was all he was called back then. And we thought he was cool. He came with this cloth cape. He could conceal his blaster underneath it, which was neat. And all the fabric, and it was so much better than the old vinyl capes that the original figures came with. Some people don't like them. I don't understand. Got a Man-O-Man here who's one of the, what they call the last 17, which means the last 17 figures that they ever released in '85. There were no more movies coming out, so in a last-ditch effort to sell toys, they came up with some really obscure characters and included a collector's coin with them. So the last 17 are extremely expensive. They're hard to find. If you do find them, you're probably going to pay a lot for them. So I'm glad to have the ones I do. I have all of them except 6. And I may never get those 6. Just the staff alone here on a Man-O-Man. I mean, he came with a staff with skulls attached to them. And there's a hand. It was one of the most bizarre accessories that came with any Star Wars figure. He's larger than the rest of the line. He has scant seconds of screen time, but he's absolutely one of my favorites, and I'm really glad to have him. Back here, of course, was the Max Rebo Band. They were sold as a 3-pack. Now, they were not done justice. Special edition of Return of the Jedi, they were kind of given all these digital counterparts. They only had 3 band members originally, when now they had all kinds of them afterwards. But I like just the basic 3. Max Rebo here, apparently a fan favorite. I always liked him. He's a little blue elephant guy playing the keyboard. So as a child, I always hoped he survived the sail barge, and apparently he did. So we saw him show up also in Book of Boba Fett. And we hope he survived that one. It's left a little bit up in the air, but we assume we didn't see him in that club when it blew up. He survived. Sliced Noodles here, one of the very few female figures from the original Kenner line. She was actually just one of 2 or 3, I think. Regi's here was another favorite of mine. Just love the design on this guy. He doesn't have much screen time, but he had a unique weapon. It's a whole unique sculpt. And he's not exactly that valuable today. You can find him pretty cheap, actually. I have an example of him where he's actually unpackaged. I'll get these guys out of the way. They're just, well, Jabba's sail barge. And these are the goons that tried to throw Luke and his friends into the Sarlacc pit. They had the distinctive scream as they all fell down to be slowly digested for over 1,000 years. Which I thought you'd die well before then, but that's Jabba's PR campaign. Oops, that fell over. So they were all pretty cool. The one in front, Barada, he's another one of the last 17 Power of the Force figures, so he's considerably more valuable than the rest of those. Now the one guy, the rarest figure I have probably in the entire line is this guy here. This is Yak Face. This is an original Yak Face. One of the last 17, and he was never released in the United States at all. He was only released overseas. So he's got a lot of damage, but by the time some paint damage there, you can see there's a lot of reproductions of this guy online. So if you ever see a version of him being sold for $20 to $30, it is obviously a reproduction, whether it's a 3D printer or they make molds of him or what else. He should have the original Kenner date. This one, there's no debating that this guy, his limbs are loose, a lot of paint loss. He's still quite valuable. And he just had seconds of screen time himself. He's came up with a name, Salate Mayor or something like that. Like all these guys have gotten little backstories over the years. Come over here, we've got Jabba's torture droids. 88, the white one here, he given a huge second shot at fame in the Disney era. Book of Boba Fett has a lot of speaking roles, whereas in the original trilogy all he did was pull a lever and put some hot irons into a droid's feet. His interpreter, 88, now she is a childhood survivor of mine. I had this one as a kid, and when I helped my mom move and emptied the house, I found a bucket of action figures, and she was one of them. And it was a good find because she's very valuable. Her legs warp over time. They break off. The arms break off. She's got a feature here where she even has a mouth that moves, which was odd. Well, not really, because she does talk quite a bit in the film. And she is another of the rare female figures. We found out she was programmed female. Over here, of course, the big guy himself, the Rancor, and the Rancor Keeper. Rancor Keeper is a pretty common figure. The Rancor itself was an awesome thing to have as a kid. Signature of the actress who played Ula on his arm. I took him to meet her at a Comic-Con. Femi Taylor is her name. And she played Ula not once but twice in '83 and came back for the special edition. I bought a little Lego mini version of Ula from her. Disney has pretty much backed off from anything to do with this character. She was a prisoner and she was murdered in the film. Show what a bad guy Jabba was. She, the actress herself, obviously enjoys selling merchandise with this character. So whether you agree with that or not, it's just the way it is today. She never had a vintage figure, but there is one that Hasbro, after they bought Kenner, released, say in the late 90s. Back there I do have the Jabba the Hutt torture set, the dungeon. And a boxed example of a small desert sail skiff, a mini rig of one that was included with the Jabba set that were tied into it, I should say. Of course, we never got his sail barge back then. Today, Hasbro has done a new version of it for HasLab. It goes for about $2,000 now. If you didn't back it the first time, you're going to spend a lot of money to get it now. So, anyway, that's a look at Jabba and his gang. I may do a short video on the Ewoks next. As I've said, I'll be doing a giveaway if we can get to 100 subscribers, and that would include a vintage Star Wars figure. I'll pick out a good one, and somebody will get it for free. Thank you for watching.